Got a new book for me. You got a new book for me? Yeah, I'll give you something to read. I don't know. Okay, Erev Tov, everybody. Welcome back to all those who've been away. Welcome to all those who've been here. Let's talk a little bit tonight about Chametz Shavar Lava Pesach. It's one of the questions that comes up a lot after Pesach. Truth is, it's funny to think about, but there are some places in the world where it's still Pesach right now. But if you consider America, because of the Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galiot and the time difference, but there it's still Pesach. But for us, Pesach is over. But so one of the questions comes up. So people go and do their shopping, and you have the chametz which you've sold, or you go into the supermarket, and can you go and can you buy all of the chametz? A few people asked me already this morning if we want to go and purchase chametz products. Can we do that? Do we have to wait until Pesach? Sometimes, the biggest problem is when you sometimes have the flour that's ground after Pesach. So you see before Pesach, printed on the pack, is that it's Kemach Pesach. It's printed before Pesach, then you know it's a problem. But in any event, that's a real anecdote that comes up every year as well. But let's talk about, so the sugya starts off, we have a Mishnah in Psachim. Mishnah in the second parak of Psachim tells us, Chametz shanochri shavar alav Pesach, mutar v'hana'ah, v'shal Yisrael asur b'hana'ah. So if you have chametz, which belonged to a non-Jew, which passed shavar alav Pesach, meaning that it was in possession of the non-Jew, was in the world during Pesach, so that is allowed, that is mutar b'hana'ah, you can get benefit from that. V'shal Yisrael asur b'hana'ah. If it was chametz that belonged to a Jew, that is going to be forbidden to get benefit from. Forbidden to get benefit, or the more so would be forbidden to eat. Shnei Amar, says the Mishnah, Shnei Amar lo yira'eh lecha se'or. So that's part of the Yisur of Bal Yira'eh. So here we have, the truth is it's not clear from the Mishnah exactly what the parameter of the prohibition is. Is it the Oraita? Is it the Rabbanan? What exactly is going on? There's a long sugya in the Gemara, goes through three different opinions in the Tanaim as to exactly what the status of this chametz is. The conclusion is, the Gemara tells us, Rabbi Amar Olam Rabbi Shimon he, that this Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, which is that knasa kane so'il v'ava alea v'bal yira'eh v'bal yimatzeh. In other words, this whole din of chametz shavar alav Pesach is a din d'Rabbanan. It is a knas, it is a fine, it's a penalty which the Rabbanan imposed because of the fact that somebody transgressed the issur of bal yira'eh v'bal yimatzeh. You are not allowed to own chametz on Pesach, and therefore, for the Jew who owned chametz on Pesach, we now have a penalty after Pesach that you cannot derive benefit from it. Now, this knas is maybe more stringent than the ordinary knasot that we're used to in two ways. First of all, we already saw in the Mishnah that the Isur is not just Isur Achila. It's not just about eating it, but it's about deriving any benefit from it. And we'll see as well that when the poskim discuss certain cases of doubt and if there are other mitigating factors, so it's always going to be easier to allow benefit rather than to allow eating, right? That's one stage higher. But nonetheless, the baseline is that if there was chametz shavar alav Pesach, not only can you not eat it, but you cannot derive benefit from it. The second thing, which is highly unusual, which is quite unique to this knas, is that ordinarily speaking, so we would think when Chazal imposed the knas, who would you impose the knas on? Who would you impose the penalty? On the one who's transgressed, or the one for whom it has been transgressed. So when we have Maaseh Shabbat, for example, a person performs a forbidden melacha on Shabbat, a person cooks on Shabbat, you're not allowed to. So that food is going to be forbidden. Okay, depends what's b'meizid, b'shogeg, what are the parameters, this whole sugi and chulin, we won't go into it. But who is it going to be forbidden to when it's forbidden the knas? For the person who cooked, or the person who it was cooked for, in order to prevent that from happening again. So we would think that chametz shavar alav Pesach, okay, the person who was in possession of the chametz, they can't eat it and they can't benefit from it. But no, over here we say that in fact this knas applies to everybody, applies to Kol Yisrael. So Reuven, whoever it was, Shimon, Saploni, Amoni, kept his chametz on Pesach. That chametz, I don't even know him, but that chametz now has the status of chametz shavar alav Pesach, and it's going to be forbidden for everybody. It's going to be forbidden for any Jew to buy, to eat, to get any benefit from. Huh?
It's a commercial knas.
It's a commercial knas, isn't it?
You can't sell it. It's obviously
you can't sell it, right? Okay, so it applies to everybody. Okay. So now the question is, we are now after Pesach, so we come to the supermarket or we come to the bakery, whatever it is we want to get, we need to know that the chametz was not in possession of a Jew over Pesach. So obviously, if the chametz was produced after Pesach, there's no question it's not chametz shavar lava Pesach. But what if it's goods that were there from before, that's been in the shops already for the last few weeks or months or whatever it is? So generally speaking, you go to the shops and you'll see they have a tudah, right? You get a tudat kashrut. Obviously, a person has to look and you have to see that you know what it is. Many times, I remember once went to a certain restaurant somewhere in Yerushalayim and said, "Do you have a tudat kashrut?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, we have a tudat kashrut." He pulls out a file, he flips through the pages, says, "There you go. You see." Before I could even see that, he's closed it, he's put it away. So can I just see that again? Yeah, sure. Here you go. That one. Right. So when they're not sure, you have to look and you have to see exactly what is the tudah. Is it what is the date? If he sold his chametz last year, it doesn't really help me so much about in terms of this year, etc. So person has to be careful. But you go into a shop, so tudat kashrut is one thing, and then ishur mechirat chametz is something else. But generally speaking, the shops will have there's an ishur mechirat chametz, and you look at it and you see the date and you see that they've sold all of their chametz this year, and then it's fine. It's not chametz shavar lava Pesach. Now, even people who don't want to, we discussed a couple of times, the idea of mechirat chametz, and many are stringent. Many have the custom not to rely on mechirat chametz for their own chametz, for chametz gamur. There is very strong, compelling reason, even for one who does not rely on mechirat chametz for oneself, to rely on the commercial mechirat chametz now to go and buy this chametz and not to be stringent about that. Why? So two reasons. One is, we mentioned one of the issues with a number of questions that are raised regarding mechirat chametz. One of the things the poskim writes is that if it's not a hefset merubeh, it's not going to be a great loss. So better not to rely on it. If I have half a packet of pasta at home, okay, it's not going to break the bank if I get rid of that half a packet of pasta rather than selling it and keeping it in my house, etc. Don't rely on certain things which might be halachically questionable. But if you're talking about a business, a great supermarket or osem or whatever it is, and for them, there is a hefset merubeh, and therefore for that business, there is much greater room, much greater grounds to rely on mechirat chametz in the first place. That is one distinction. But the more important distinction is that when we talk about mechirat chametz for oneself, before Pesach, during Pesach, what's the issue? The issue is bal yira'eh, bal yimatzeh. The issue is whether I am in possession of chametz on Pesach, which is an isur d'oraita. So we may not want to rely on this mechira because it's harama, because it's a loophole, because we're not sure about the kinyanim, because of all sorts of reasons. We don't want to rely on that. We'd rather do b'dika and biur and bitul, etc. So as not to transgress the isur d'oraita of owning chametz on Pesach. But when we're dealing with chametz she'avar alav Pesach, we're now after Pesach, there's no isur d'oraita. This is not a question of bal yireh or bal yimatzeh. If I purchase chametz from somebody who relied on mechirat chametz, there is no way in the world that I am now retroactively, I personally, transgressing bal yireh or bal yimatzeh. The worst that could be is this knas, which is a knas d'Rabbanan, right? Not to a knas d'Rabbanan of chametz she'avar alav Pesach. So if the individual, the company, or the shop where I'm buying from, they have fulfilled the way they see it, their halachic obligation of selling their chametz, even if I wouldn't rely on that for myself, but okay. But now for the Yisud Rabbanan, that should be enough to rely on, and therefore there is strong grounds, even for those who don't rely on the chametz themselves, not to necessarily wait until all things it's new produce, whatever, even so long as the sale was done correctly and it was done in a proper way, then it's something I can rely on for the purposes of now buying from the supermarket. What happens, though, in the following case? This is something which is discussed already for a number of centuries. Let's say the store owner does the mechirat chametz. Remember the first time I walked into a supermarket on Pesach in Israel, I was so impressed. You walk in, all the shelves are covered, and it's white, and it's chametz, and everybody's so frum. At the time, I didn't know it was the law. But anyway, that's but it's something. In Chutz La'aretz, you walk into so there's bread everywhere, and there's bakeries, or whatever. You're in Israel, it's a Jewish state, without getting into politics. But you walk into the stores, 99% of places, you don't see chametz. It's all covered up, and you can't buy it. Okay. Every now and again, you find as you're walking through those aisles where they're all blocked up with the paper and it says chametz, there's a small hole here and there's a hole over there, and somebody's gone in and they've poked their hand through and they've taken out a box of cookies or whatever it is, and they've decided to go and buy it. What happens when it happens? It probably doesn't happen in Shaarei Chesed, but it happens in other places. So what happens if the store owner has sold their chametz, right? But they didn't actually sell the chametz, meaning they signed the documents, they did everything that they were meant to do, with the rabbanot, the rav, or the whoever came up to them and said, sign this document. Okay, he signed, whatever. He covered everything up, or he didn't cover everything up, but he continued to engage in transactions with the chametz that was in the store. Does that now render the entire sale null and void? And does that mean that if I go into that store after Pesach, I'm not allowed to buy the chametz? That is the question. Just preface this, by the way, everything we're dealing with now we're talking about chametz gamur. You walk into a store, there are things which are not necessarily kosher for Pesach, don't have the stamp, even if they have chametz ingredients in them, but it's a mixture, it's a tarovet chametz, and the chametz is batel, certainly if it's kitniot or anything like that. That's not chametz that the fine, the knas of chametz shavar lava Pesach would not apply to. But actual bona fide chametz, that's what we're dealing with. And so this is the question. If the sale was done formally as a sort of ceremony, but the person continued acting as if it was his chametz. There was one case that came up a couple of years ago in Chutz La'aretz, I remember, where medicines, generally speaking, pills which don't have a taste, or whatever, certainly for bayir matzeh, there's no issue. And even if a person is a choleh and needs to take those pills, that's okay, usually. But you have syrups and things which have a taste, so very often they have chametz ingredients. And very often the children's medicines have got chametz ingredients in them. So here in Israel, there's one flavor of akamoli for kids, which is kosher for Pesach, which is certified. But so in England, a couple of years ago, you couldn't get the medicine which was for kids, which was certified kosher for Pesach. Okay. So now again, with the medicine, because it's not the general way of eating, and it's not we wouldn't consider it ra'ui l'ma'achal in terms of owning it. Once it has a taste, there's going to be an issue of owning it. There's going to be an issue. But if somebody is sick and somebody needs to take that medicine, especially for kids, there's room to be lenient. So the instruction was, and this is what we did with the Mechirat Chametz, was we said that this medicine for kids, which is Chametz, so you have to put it away. It's included in the sale. It's included in the sale to the non-Jew. But if you're going to need this medicine, if your child is sick on Pesach, you're going to need to use this medicine, so you can use it. So there was a clause, and so we told people, put it in a place where you're able to access it if necessary. It's not yours, belongs to the non-Jew, you've sold it. But there was a clause in the sale, and I remember when we sold to the non-Jew, we said, just to let you know, you're buying all this chametz, but there's going to be this medicine which is inside, and the person may need to use it. Do they have your permission to use it, to take it out? And he of course said yes, they can use it, and that was the case that was done. Again, it's a real sale, it's an official thing. We're trying to make it as real as possible. But so what happens here in our case, where it's not real? The whole thing seems to be you're signing the documents, but you're still acting as if the chametz is yours. It's in the shop. And that's the question. So let me just share with you the Stei Chemed. We'll continue tomorrow. But the Stei Chemed has a tshuva. He discusses this, and this was exactly the case. He says, "Zot lodia ki lifnei ze shanim shesh u'sheva be'erech." Whenever he's writing this, he says 6 or 7 years ago, we had the following case in our city. היה מעשה בעיר הזאת, שאחד מכר חמץ לנוכרי בכל המועד, ואותו החמץ ומכללות החמץ שמכר לעכו"ם קודם הפסח. So again, this is a store owner, sold their chametz before Pesach, meaning officially sold the chametz, or they signed the document, but they still had the chametz there in the store. Somebody came in, okay, it was a non-Jew who came, who purchased, but not the one who officially bought the chametz, but who's actually walked into the store in Chol HaMoed and said, I'd like to buy this, whatever it is, whiskey, I don't know. So in other words, he sold the chametz, which actually wasn't his; it belonged to the akum. He's proving that he did not really take that sale seriously. So he says, "This is Stei Chemed, v'asalti kol chametzro la'achar Pesach lekol Yisrael." He says, because of that, after Pesach, I told everybody, this shop you cannot go, you cannot purchase all the chametz which he owns, even though he signed the shtar of Mechirat Chametz. He proved with his actions that it wasn't serious. Therefore, it's chametz shavar alav Pesach. Therefore, all the chametz that he has in his shop, that is forbidden to every Jew, and nobody can go and buy from it. From the continuation, it seems that he learned his lesson, and the following year, it was a great monetary loss because that's what happened. So you see there, that is one opinion. We'll see tomorrow, maybe others, but that's where we'll leave for today. But there is certainly an opinion that if you don't take the mechira seriously, it doesn't happen. It's null and void, and all the chametz in the shop would be chametz shavar alav Pesach. Rabbi Kenigsberg. Rav Moshe, did you say? We'll get to Rav Moshe tomorrow. Rabbi Kenigsberg Mincha Maariv Shiur, הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות ישראל, לפיכך בא למצוא מצוות, שנאמר אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיר תורה